Hi, guys, and welcome to section 5.1, where we are going to deep dive and go through everything that you need to know about selling internationally. So let's get into it. Your progress so far. What should we have done? The first thing is that we should have a solid domestic sales foundation. So we never want to start selling internationally unless we already kind of have built our base within the US. And the reason that, we suggest starting in the US is that it's the biggest market. Hate to admit it, but us United Staters love shopping. We love spending money. So it's a great market to get started in. We know that there's plenty of people out there who want to buy from, your brand. So that first thing, we definitely want solid domestic sales prior to starting this phase. The second thing that we want at this point is a positive ad performance. If our ads are not working within the US, the last thing that we want to do is just think, "Oh, if I expand that then it'll work." That's not the case. It's always we want to focus on the product. That's then going to help get the ads up and running at a positive ROAS. And then from there, we can slowly expand out. So if you're not running at a positive ROAS yet, it's not your time to be moving on to international fulfillment. The third thing that should have already happened at this point is extensive catalog with at least 150 plus designs. So we definitely have started to understand our customer, understand the niche, understand what they're looking for, the types of designs that they're liking and purchasing. If we are maybe sitting at 30 designs and it's just not time, we want to have a lot to offer, especially when going international. And finally, we want to have a funnel optimized for scaling. So if Chris has talked about that leaky funnel, water kind of spewing out in different areas. If that funnel is not yet optimized, then just expanding isn't going to help things. It's just going to make our bucket even more leaky than it was before. We're going to lose more water out of those holes. So we want to make sure that those holes are all patched up. We have this really nice funnel that's optimized for, scaling and for expanding our brand and company. Now, by the end of this lesson, you will be able to prepare your Shopify and Printify for international orders. You will also learn the best practices for handling international challenges, so different things that can arise, different issues, as well as optimizing your pricing, colors, and processing for new markets on both Printify and Shopify. So, what is the 10,000-foot view? What are the things that we need to focus on in this section? The first is going to be tapping into a new customer base and increasing our revenue. So as we expand, we should be, getting more customers in the door, as well as increasing the amount of revenue month over month. The second thing is diversifying our business across different regions. So we're going to be expanding and going really out into the world and showing everybody our brand. So it's important that we are diversifying and really starting to slowly expand when the time is right. And the last thing is going to be preventing common mistakes and accelerate growth for preparation. So these are all the big things that we want to keep in mind as we are going through this topic. So first, let's start off with Printify. Now, I'm going to be talking about the Printify portion. Chris will come in a little bit, and he's going to talk about the Shopify as well as the Facebook ad side of selling internationally. But I handle everything fulfillment-wise on our brand, so we're going to do a deep dive into Printify and really get things set up on the back end and actually prepared for accepting international sales. So the important thing about Printify is that they do have ways that can automatically, partner you up with international printers. But again, as we've seen time and time again, your cost of goods can sometimes suffer from that. So what Chris and I like to do is run a big, huge spreadsheet, really breaking down all the prices. You'll see that in a little bit. But it's important to choose the right print provider based off of the needs that we have and what we're looking for. And really that big need is our cost of goods. So we want to decide the target regions that we are going to look at and go after. And we'll dive deeper into this on the actual Printify website, but it's important to kind of think of our regions. So we've got Europe, you've got Asia, you have New Zealand and Australia, as well as Canada, and then South America. So we'll take a look at kind of the different printers that we can utilize within the Printify platform and then go from there. But again, we like to set this up manually. You can absolutely choose the Printify Connect, but we've found more success and we have more control over our finances if we are choosing them manually and kind of going the extra mile with setting up our international fulfillment. The second thing that we're going to do is filter by location. So it's really important that we're sending the right orders to the correct printer Again, this is manual. This is on our back end. It's what we handle. That way, we're keeping a really close eye on our budget and really determining, are we running in a way that we are going to be profitable? We want to be checking the quality and the reviews of these printers. The last thing that we want to do is maybe select a cheap printer, but they have horrible reviews. Maybe they're really slow with getting orders out the door. Maybe they have a lot of defects. We want to be looking into that and understanding the quality. You could also run a test order. Again, it would probably be a little bit more expensive because you would be paying to ship it internationally to yourself. But sometimes it is important to actually put in an order, see the quality that your international customers are going to get. We want to be able to match availability. So this could be colors. That's probably the biggest thing that comes to mind when we are thinking about international fulfillment is the t-shirt colors. That's really the biggest thing that does get affected. So a lot of these international printers don't always have a lot of the fun, funky colors that the US printers like to carry. So depending on your niche, you may kind of be stuck with some certain print providers. So definitely we want to look into that before just immediately expanding out into international. Again, we want to compare costs and shipping. Because of the fact it's our cost of goods, it's our largest expense that we're going to pay. It's important to go through the numbers and the data and determine, if we're making a good move prior to just saying, okay, let's throw gasoline on the fire and just see what happens. Again, that can just cause a huge mess for yourself. So save yourself the time, really break down the data, look at which printers that we want to be fulfilling with, and make this kind of a slow transition. It doesn't have to be something that happens overnight. It's going to take some time. So remember that big spreadsheet I was talking about? This is what Chris and I did for all of our international print providers who had all the colors that we offered on our site, had the same, Gildan 64,000. You'll notice now, if you're selling comfort colors, a lot of the international printers actually don't have that t-shirt to print yet. So it's really important to look into that as well prior to just starting this entire process. So we break down who carries our t-shirt, who carries our t-shirt colors. We break down the prices, the shipping, what's one item shipping price versus any additional items. That way we can really run the numbers and determine, are we going to be in that same 40 to 50% cost of goods, even if we go international, because sometimes it does get a little bit more expensive. So it's always important to run those numbers and make sure that at the end of the day, we're actually going to make something off of this. Because the last thing we want to do is just expand and make more work for us and then not make any more money on top of it. So definitely important to break everything down, really dive deep into Printify's platform and look and see what they have. So speaking of which, let's get over there and let's take a look. And then we'll kind of get into how we naturally expand on the back end. Okay, so the first thing that I like to do when I'm looking into international print providers is I actually find my product. So I go to the Gildan 64 listing because then Printify is going to give you the breakdown of every single print provider. And before we get into that, it's always good to make your ship from no preference because then it's going to show us kind of like the cheapest shipping. We're picking these international printers so that hopefully our shipping cost is a lot lower. Because if Monster Digital was going to be the one fulfilling this, order, one, it would take 10 to 30 days sometimes to reach our international customers. Nobody wants that. That's really annoying. And two, it costs us at least $10 to ship it from the US to an international location. So that's really expensive compared to, I think we pay like $475 or $479 to ship it to somebody within the US. So, that's a way higher expense. So we want to make sure that we're, keeping all of our costs as cheap as we possibly can and also getting our customers' orders to them as quickly as we possibly can. So since now we have no preference from our ship from, let's get into looking at some of these different print providers and then determining if this is a good fit for us or not. So we have Latvia here. This is where it shows the location of where this printer is. If you don't recognize the flag, you can just hover over and it will show you the country that they are in. You'll see the rating. So the higher stars, the higher rating that the, print provider has gotten. And then also take notice of the colors. So remember what I was saying, a lot of times when we are selling internationally, these international printers don't have a lot of like the fun, funky colors. So that sometimes hinders where we can really expand to. And reason why Chris and I have really kept our colors to be very few on our site because we want to be able to print and ship with a lot of different print providers all around the world. So this one here, Druka, I'm going to say, they only have 6 colors. Again, even if we wanted to print with them, they wouldn't be able to handle the military green. So that one's probably off of my list. Now, their pricing isn't bad, but still a little bit expensive. Now, Shirt Monkey, their price is pretty good, and shipping is from $3.49. So, that's pretty cheap. So this is one that I would want to dig into, and I would probably put this on my spreadsheet. So I'd click the provider information and take a look at all the prices that I would be paying. So it is really nice. Again, they only go up to 2XL though. Monster Digital goes up to 3XL. So that could potentially be a problem. But the prices overall are pretty decent. $8.10. I mean, they kind of do that Swift Pod thing where, they can sometimes they trick you to thinking you're paying $7.69 for every single shirt. But overall, the pricing isn't bad. Next, let's go over to shipping and just kind of take a look at things. So if it was coming to the United States, so they're printing it, over in the UK and shipping it to us, look at that. Delivery time 10 to 30 days. That's just not ideal. And it would cost $13.99. But if we are shipping to somebody within the United Kingdom, and this is what we would manually do on the back end, it would be 2 to 3 business days, and it would cost us $3.49. And if it was a 2-shirt order, it would be, $3.49 plus $1.99. So overall, pretty cheap shipping. So can't you see how you would save so much money if you were actually printing with them in the United Kingdom and shipping only to the United Kingdom? So this is where, all the little like manual backend stuff starts to work and play. So I would throw all this information. I would just take all the information here and I would plug that into a spreadsheet similar to this. That way we are keeping a really like good eye on which printer we're going to save the most money with, has a good rating, and allows us to have the most options for our brand. So some really important stuff. And you just kind of go down the list and look at some of these different locations. So this one's Australia. We would definitely want an Australian printer because then they can ship to Australia and New Zealand for pretty cheap, as well as ship to Asia pretty quickly because Printify doesn't have, there are some, Chinese providers, but when it comes to printing of t-shirts, there's not a ton. There really isn't any. So we need to kind of get strategic of which printers that we're going to select and how we're going to get, those products to those customers. So looking at the Print Bar, they definitely have a good amount of colors. So that's good. They've got military green. They have all colors that we need. So we would click the provider info. Overall price, not terrible. I mean, it's more expensive than Monster Digital, but you're going to find that most of these other printers are going to be slightly more expensive than them. They just by far have the best pricing compared to really anybody else. I mean, SwiftPod does compete pretty well with them as well. So overall, pricing not terrible. I would throw all of this information again in that spreadsheet. And look, they have the 3XL, so that's great. Now let's take a look at shipping. Again, I don't really care about like the rest of the world because the only orders that I would have this printer fulfill, I would just send them the Australia and the New Zealand ones. So, from the US, it would take 10 to 30 business days, maybe even longer because, far away from the United States to Australia or New Zealand, and it would cost us $10 in shipping versus if we print with them, yes, we're spending a little bit more in our production, but overall look at that shipping price compared to $10. Like that's huge. And their additional item is cheap. So overall, I would say this is a great contender for fulfilling in Australia and New Zealand. And you want to just continue going down the list, looking at kind of the different providers that we could go with. Xprint, Germany, this would be a great European provider or OPT on demand. Look at this price, $662. And look at that. It's $662 on all of them except the dark heather gray. So this is super cheap. This is cheaper than Monster Digital, than Monster Digital can provide for us. And look at the shipping prices. For Germany, it's $3.79 and for an additional item $1.19. So this would be great for those European countries. I mean, overall, it's pretty cheap. So great to look at and kind of determine which customers from which regions would we want to actually send their orders to this printer. So I would probably send anybody, well, one, Germany, any Czech Republic, as well as any of Europe besides like the UK. This would be a great way to actually get your items printed by somebody in Europe. And again, not too bad color-wise. They have all the colors that Chris and I use and would need. So it's important to keep that in mind as you're looking through all these providers. And I just kind of go down the list and I want somebody in as many areas as I could possibly get. So I want a UK printer who can handle UK, and typically it's a little bit cheaper for Ireland. I'd want somebody for Europe, so that OPT on demand would be a great choice because it's pretty cheap to go all of Europe. Australia, New Zealand, it's going to be probably cheapest and fastest to get any orders, one for those two countries, but also any Asian countries. So if people are ordering from the Philippines or Thailand, Hong Kong, those would be a great print provider to, get that over to them. And then Canada, because even though it's coming from the US to Canada, it's not as far of a distance. It still has to go through customs. It just takes a lot of time. So if you're actually fulfilling with the printer in that country, you're skipping customs. It's getting to the customer a lot faster. And hopefully, again, we're saving money by printing with these print providers. So let's say we've selected all of our print providers. We know what we're going with. What do we do next? You want to go to your products. We will filter by Monster Digital, and we're going to look at this Skis OK t-shirt because this is going to be our first t-shirt for our winter collection. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to duplicate this design. So now we have a copy, and you kind of just keep doing this for all of your print providers, and then I'll show you the trick. So let's say we have a Canadian print provider, a European, a UK, an Australian. So we want to pick 4 different print providers. So I want to duplicate this out 4 separate times. So 2, 3, and 4. So now we've duplicated this same t-shirt, same design 4 separate times. And now we can go back, and the trick is going to be we are going to replace. And it's going to let us swap out the print provider. So the reason that we make 4 different copies, we're not going to publish these, but it's important to have the 4 different copies. That way we can just kind of select on our back end when we need to edit the order, and then we'll select the correct design with the correct printer. So it's definitely more manual, but again, guys, this saves so much money. So let's say print bar. So we're going to select this. It's going to take us here to the design. Again, we can tweak stuff if we want. Again, this design looks great. You'll notice on some print providers, the size of the print area will change a little bit. So we just want to make sure that it's matching up as best as we possibly can with our mock-up. So this looks great. I don't need to make any changes. Again, they have all the colors that we needed. If, we wanted to add something, we absolutely could. But again, they have all the options that we need. So we're just going to click Save Product. And then instead of copy, we can delete that, and we can write in the back Australia. So it just shows, and we're not going to click publish. We're just going to click save as draft. So that way we know, okay, we've done the Australian printer. Great. Boom, right here. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to replace the next copy. And this time we're going to do it with a European printer. So we're going to go and find OPT on demand. Here we go. Perfect. Let's select it. Again, our design is already in, but look, do you see how the print area is a little bit different here? So this one I would definitely want to move down so that my print is in a similar area as it was on, my US designs. And then we would just, make sure that we're doing it the same for the dark designs as well. Just making our adjustments just like this. And overall, that's a pretty good placement. Again, I wouldn't want it all the way up here at my neck. So we'll just move that down. Again, it's going to match our mock-up pretty well. We'll click Save Product. Again, we're going to delete copy of, and then we're going to put Europe. Save as draft. And then we'll go on to, again, the next one. So we have Australia, we have Europe. Let's pick a UK. Now, I didn't really do too much digging deep in the price, but I think this one's going to end up being our cheaper option. So we're going to click select. And then overall, this one's not bad. I think I'm just going to move it down slightly. Okay. Save product. And this would be a provider for UK and Ireland. So you can say UK plus Ireland. And finally, the last one that we are going to now switch is going to be the Canadian one. So we'll replace this. Now, this is a Canadian one, but look at that price. Like, that's expensive. So I'm going to keep looking. I know that there's another one, Print Geek. Yeah, so look at this. Definitely cheaper. Still pretty expensive shipping, but again, we'd be saving, both time and probably a few dollars by printing with this Canadian provider. And then just kind of make that bigger. I'm going to do that. So overall, design looks pretty good. We'll click save. And now we are going to write that this is Canada and save as a draft. So that's great. So now, again, only the Monster Digital design, this one right here, only this design is published to our Shopify store. So when someone goes and orders this, whether it will be in the US or Canada or Europe, it's going to come into Printify already connected to Monster Digital. So when we'll break down all of our international orders, we'll see where they're all coming from. We'll look at where the consumer is, and then we can go to our orders and really find them and then tweak them. So for example, we'll take this order right here. Now this one's manual, but for the case of this course, this would be how I would actually handle kind of switching the print provider. So here's our order. Now imagine that this is the ski shirt. It's a ski t-shirt. We need to change it. This customer is in the UK. So we're going to find our order from that customer. We are then going to edit our order because this order has not yet gone into production. So it's important that we're making these changes prior to our automatic time. So as you're getting orders throughout the day, you can be switching the print provider, or you can kind of allow yourself some time at the end of the day to switch all these over, or manually fulfill your products and don't automatically fulfill with Printify. So there's some areas that we can tweak. But what Chris and I do is at this point now we have an employee who throughout the day as we're getting orders, she is changing who the printer will be for that customer, so that customer, one, is getting their order as fast as they can, and two, we're saving some money. So what we would do is come to edit order. And it's going to pull up our shirt right here. Now, I like to keep the shirt pulled up. Again, we're pretending that this one is the ski shirt. We're going to click add product to order. Now, because we just updated these, they're going to be right here at the top, but we're going to just say skis. Okay. And it should pull up every single print provider that we have. Now, remember, this person is in the UK. So we are going to click the UK provider, Print Clever. And from there, we want to make sure that we are matching up all the same credentials from the order. And this is where some human error could come into play. So let's say they ordered black. So we're going to click black, and they ordered a medium. So we're going to select medium. As you can see, we have the UK and Ireland here telling us, okay, we can now delete the US. So we're going to delete that shirt. And now basically what we did was we replaced the United States shirt just with the same exact shirt for the UK provider. We'll go to shipping. Again, it's going to, I know this one's not a UK address, but when it is, it's going to calculate your shipping based on that area in the UK. And then we can look at our production cost, the shipping cost, and then the total cost that it's going to cost us. And you can actually see the difference prior to editing the order And sometimes it's like you save almost $10 on an order. It's absolutely crazy. And then I'll click save for later because Chris and I do the automatic fulfillment. So now that I've switched the provider to the UK and Ireland print provider, now at 11:55 p.m., that order would go through and it would automatically just get sent to the UK printer and they're already going to be handling the order. So it's really that simple. It's just making that quick little switch. So really the most time consuming part is one, the research and looking at which print provider is going to be the best provider for you and what you're looking for. And then the second most timely thing is really just copying out that design and then replacing it with the correct print provider. So definitely takes a little bit of time, but by doing it manually, guys, you will save so much money and you're going to be able to keep a way closer eye on your finances and again, increasing that profit margin. So now that we went through really how we handle everything on the back end on Printify and how you can get everything set up there, Chris is now going to come in and go through everything international fulfillment wise on Shopify.
Now, on the Shopify setup side, there's two main things we need. We need to, one, update the currency, and then two, update the shipping rates. So the way we're going to do this is by going to markets over here on the left-hand side. So this is your settings and then markets. And we're going to set up each of these markets that you see here. So you can screenshot this or bookmark this to come back. And we have 10 different markets. So we make one for the United States, which is our primary. Then we do one for Australia, Brazil, Canada, Euro countries, France, Germany, international, which is just rest of the world, Japan, and then United Kingdom. And the reason we do each of these and not, like a bunch of other ones is the US is a primary market. So we set this for USD. Australia, we have a separate print provider for, and we show Australian currency. Brazil is only 0.1% of total sales, but we show the Brazilian currency and we show the shipping rates there. Canada and then Euro countries, we bundle all together because we want to be showing one that, all of the countries shopping from there, we want to show our products in Euro, which comes down to two pieces. One, it's the currency of the product, but then the sneaky one that I didn't realize for a while, but you have to set up these separate markets so that they're along with separate shipping settings so that they're seeing their native currency when they check out as well. Because the thing that I didn't realize for a while was that I set up the European, like the Euro currency for our products. So somebody from, a European country would come to the site, they would see the t-shirts in euros, but then they wouldn't see, when they got all the way to checkout, their shipping rates were being shown in US dollars. Which, think about that from, when I thought about it from my perspective, was like if I was shopping on a store in US dollars and then I get all the way to checkout and then it shows me, the shipping rate in euros or pounds, that'd be pretty weird. And, even if it would just come off as kind of strange. And so that was hurting our conversion rate for a while. And the way that I found that specifically, back to the funnel optimization training, if you haven't gone through that yet, I highly recommend watching it. The way that I found that was by reviewing our top 3 metrics in terms of conversion rate, which is add to cart, reach checkout, then sessions converted. Which one of those 3 is impacted by shipping rates? That's sessions converted. So I noticed that we had a big drop off there. Then when I looked closer, I looked at the reports in Shopify and saw that our conversion rate for the US was normal, but and even Australia was normal because it looked like it was their currency, but it actually wasn't. They thought it was just really cheap because their currency is the same symbol. But anyway, I noticed that the US had a healthy conversion rate and it was the rest of the countries that had a big drop off. So I started asking, why is that happening? What are people seeing that they weren't expecting? And going down that rabbit hole, that's where the vast majority of our improvements have come from. So for the United States, so set up markets, and you might need to upgrade your Shopify plan in order to do this. I haven't checked what you need to have access for, but I think at the time of this screenshot, we were on the medium plan, which is like 105 or 129 a month, something like that. And so you're going to, within our markets, looking at the US market first, I'm going to show each of the settings for the different, the different markets. So at the top, you have market settings, you have English, then you set all products and pricing to US dollar, not collecting duties and import taxes. And again, this is not financial advice, this is not legal advice, this is meant as entertainment and educational purposes only. Do your own research, make your own decisions. It's your business, not mine. I'm just here to share from my own personal experience what has worked for us and what we're currently doing to generate over $1 million a year in sales. So getting all the disclaimers out of the way, we set up shipping rates. And the reason I said that is specifically around duties and import taxes. And those questions always come up, and always upfront with people that I'm not a tax expert, CPA, certified, any of that. I'm just sharing the things that have worked for me. If you're really concerned about it, then hire a professional, hire a lawyer or an accountant or international tax law specialist to get more clarification. But all these settings that we're showing have worked well for us, and we haven't had any issues. Knock on wood. But so shipping, we set up 2 rates. Shipping to the US, and you can see them in the bottom right. Then payments, manage the payments, payment methods you accept worldwide. And then for products and pricing, manage what currency customers in this market will see. So that's when you click on this right here. So we do US dollar, and price adjustment is 0%. And you'll see this for each one of the markets. This is Shopify asking, like, do you want to round up for the euro or down or whatever it is, based on where people are located. So we don't do any price adjustments. We just leave it as is. And the reason we do that is because, our cost of goods per t-shirt is pretty much the same, if not slightly less, for a lot of the international providers. Then for the Brazil market, so language and domains, English, products and pricing. And the reason they have domains there is that you can technically set up subdomains for, like, if you wanted to have like a different subdomain by country. And you'll see that for a lot of big brands, we don't do this, but just explaining why it's there. So you could set up like a, BRL dot, or you could do like seasonalcollections.brl.co or brl.seasonalcollections.co. So by country, but again, we don't do that. So then all products and pricing, all products included, and Brazilian real, that's their currency, rounded to the nearest $1. Then we set the price increase to 0%. Then we set up 5 different shipping rates. And Brazil is one of the ones where there aren't really any good shipping options available. So it's pretty expensive. And if you were observant on this screen, see that our conversion rate is pretty darn low on there. It's because there's none of these print providers here have good shipping rates to Brazil. Notice how none of them made it onto the list. So Brazil, we end up shipping for Monster Digital, and it's super expensive, so we just pass that price on to the customer, and it just is what it is. So until a print provider gets added into the Printify network that's available in Brazil, we're going to be looking at the same kind of pricing. And next we do Euro countries. And I included screenshots so you can see all of the countries that we include in here, but it's Andorra, Austria, Belgium, Cyprus, Estonia, Finland, Greece, Ireland, Italy, Kosovo, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta. Latvia is where Printify is based, fun fact. Monaco, Montenegro, Netherlands, Portugal, San Marino, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Vatican City. And I stated those out loud partially for the GPT, so it has it in the transcript if anybody asks about the Euro countries. But anyway, so products and pricing, just running through the settings. We use the Euro price increase set to 0, and then for the shipping, we do shipping from, or EU shipping, 0 to 32 euros is $3.95, 32 to $49.99 is $4.95, and then free shipping is 50 euros and up. And so it's about like the Euro, at least at the time we set these up, was roughly, like, these shipping settings roughly equaled out to what we were paying to Printify for the shipping. So now every person from any one of these countries that's shopping, they're going to see the Euro currency for your products, and then when they get to checkout, they're going to see Euro shipping rates as well. The next is international, and international is just every other country. So 206 countries that this is just a catch-all for all the other countries that were not in that list that we looked at before. And so the reason that these are all separate is that there aren't any print providers that have really good shipping rates to them, because they're far harder to reach, whatever it may be. Bottom line, we aren't really able to service these countries, which is fine. The vast majority of our sales come from, Australia, UK, those countries anyway. But so the way we set it up is do international, all products, we leave it as the US dollar. And then for shipping rates, we have to be pretty hefty because it's so expensive to ship there. So free shipping is for orders of $100 and up. Shipping and handling for orders $0 to $20 is $10. $20 to $40 is $11.95. $40 to 60 is $13.95, and then 60 to 99 is $14.95. So we just went through a couple of these, but you're going to repeat the same process for each of these shipping rates. And yeah, something else that I recommend doing after you've set this up is, like I alluded to before, look at your conversion rate by country. So go to your Shopify settings, your analytics, and then look at the breakdown of conversion rate by region. Remove the comparison field just to make it easier to look at, and then sort by number of sessions. And then you should see a list of all the countries, and then track the conversion rate by country. You don't have to track it in terms of like fill it out on your spreadsheet, but what you should have is, you know, a good finger to the pulse of like which countries are converting and which ones are not. Then for your ads, it's very, very simple. We literally just duplicate out your campaign and then change the targeting. I've tested adjusting the ad copy to be in that country's native language, tested a bunch of different, like spent a lot of time doing that and saw basically zero impact. So now I literally just duplicate out our main US CBO and then change the targeting and just exclude India, Pakistan, Trinidad. And the way that I came to the conclusion to exclude these, again, nothing against any of these countries, obviously, hopefully that goes without saying, this, as we've gotten to know each other this much over the past however many hours it is. But the way that I came to the conclusion that it made sense to exclude these, and way you can evaluate for yourself, is if you look at your campaign and then look at breakdown by country. If you ever get suspiciously low cost per clicks, I'm talking like 5, 10, 15 cents, but you're getting barely any purchases and your bounce rate is really high, look at the breakdown by country. And when I did that, I found that like we were getting thousands of clicks, but barely any purchases. And I was like, either something is horribly wrong with our site. And I evaluated that too. But then what I found when I looked at the breakdown was that these 3 countries were sucking up all of the spend. They were getting thousands of clicks for like a penny, but just nobody was converting. So I don't know if it's a click farm or people just really like clicking stuff there and then not buying, whatever it may be. Point is that it was just tanking our results, so I excluded them. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. Like I had somebody in the community say, like I recommended they look into this, and they were like, well, I excluded the ones you said. Like, well, that's not really the point. The point is understanding the concept. It's not following just the example. The concept here is if a country or a demographic is ever sucking up your spend for basically garbage traffic, you want to exclude it. And that's something that you don't really have to worry about when you're targeting just the United States, but it's something important to be aware of once you start targeting internationally. Now, ongoing fulfillment. So when you have a low volume of orders, and this is very subjective, it's just determine how much time are you spending manually updating each order in Printify. And, you know, whenever it flips, like for me, I automate it right out of the gate because I just want to scale up fast and I don't really want to have to spend time clicking around in Printify, but it's very different when you're just starting out. So low volume, I would say 5 to 10 orders per day, roughly. Again, that's very subjective. Just manually update each order yourself. And you should do at least some so you learn the process enough to be able to train a VA. But then once you get the higher volume, like you're going to see our spreadsheet in a second, and we actually showed it in another lesson in the course as well, but we've had thousands and thousands of orders. So once you get the high volume, you want to use Make automation, which make.com is just like Zapier, just a tenth of the cost, plus a VA. So the way that we do this is, so if we get, here's an example order that we received. So this was somebody from, I blocked out their address for their privacy, but somewhere in the EU. It's Printify. I did a good job of defending their privacy. So somebody in the EU. So they placed that order. Then if I go over into Printify, so if you see the number of the order in Shopify, and I go over to Printify, I find that order, and then we set our orders to automatically submit at like 11:55 p.m. each night. So we have, you know, a full day to go in and reroute. So full day where it's sitting in pending, and then at 11:55 p.m. these will all automatically submit. So just before that happens, we go in and we change the address. So we would find the order. This one was actually a one shirt order, so they did it automatically. But the way that you do it is you look up the order in Shopify. I'll show you how to do this automatically. But then you find it in Printify by matching up the number. Then you click on the order, and then up here, which this one again is already going to Textile Drop, but you go up here and click Edit Order. and then you'll see all the products that are in the order right here. Now what we do is we click add product to order, and we're just going to search for this title of the t-shirt, and it'll pull up all the other, and a way to do it fast is just copy this, copy, and then add product to order, paste it in here, and then this will show you all the products that you made for that design, but for each of the print providers. And these are all the ones that are in draft. Then you're just going to select the one based on the address or location of the customer, whichever one is closest. And then you're gonna click on whichever shirt it is, then choose the color, and then you select the size. And so I'm just making a note that they wanted whatever this t-shirt is, military green, medium. So I find whichever, like if you pretend that this was, a Canadian order, you would choose the Canadian print provider, Print Geek, choose military green, then you would choose medium. So you just click select, and then it would add that product to that order. And then you would just delete this one, the original one, and then you would continue on to shipping. And so there you've effectively, it's manual, but you manually rerouted it. And again, this example was for one that was already rerouted, but in most cases it would be like coming from Monster Digital. But it's still good, even though, so Printify does reroute one shirt orders, but it's still a good idea to get in the habit of checking every single order. And the way we do that automatically without, having to manually filter this every single day is we use Make. And the setup that we have that works really, really well, it's a very simple automation. We just have 2 steps. And there's some setup to this, like you have to connect your Shopify store and Google Sheets. But what this automation is basically doing is it's watching our Shopify store, and anytime a new order comes in, it's filtering to pull orders that are not from the United States. And then anytime it finds one of those orders, it adds a row to a Google Sheet. So here are the exact settings. You can screenshot this, copy it, whatever you want to do. But these are the settings we use. And then in Shopify, so its status is open, financial status paid, fulfillment status unfulfilled, limit 20. That's just the number of rows that it's going to pull. And then fields, just select all of them. And then in Google Sheets, you create a sheet, like I named it international orders. You mark if the table has headers. You say column A, use the created at, which is the order date. Then for column B, use the order number. And column C is shipping address, country. So what we're pulling looks like this. So we have order date, order number, and then country. And then what our VA is doing, and this updates all the time, but our VA has a daily recurring task to go into the spreadsheet, and they go literally one by one. They pull up this order, they click on the order number, they click on the order number, Command C, and then they go over to Printify, paste it in, and then they see where is this order being fulfilled from. And then if it's, as you can see, 90% of the time they have to reroute it, but they enter where they're going to fulfill it from. So if this was at Monster Digital and they're rerouting it to Print Bar, which the way they do that is just what we just found or what we just went through. So they're grabbing the order from the spreadsheet, searching for it in Printify, seeing what the person ordered and where it's being shipped from, and then they have that spreadsheet of the international print providers that we were looking at before. They have this pulled up on a separate tab, and they're constantly referencing it. I mean, over time, they just remember it. There's not really that many print providers, but then they're seeing, okay, this one should be rerouted to whatever printer based on what the spreadsheet says. And then they click edit order. Then they add the product from the new print provider they're using. Then they click, they continue to shipping, and they submit it. And then at midnight, it'll be submitted and get fulfilled from the new print provider. And so that's why I say roughly 5 to 10 a day. Really doesn't take that long, but it adds up over time. And lots of little things add up in this business, like any business. But you can see over here on the total saved column, we saved a ton of money. And in the other training, we added it up. I want to say it added up to like over $100,000 in total saved. So again, it would be completely unfeasible selling internationally without doing this. And again, so Indonesia, like Asia, Mexico, A lot of those countries, like all the ones that are international, fall under like the rest of the world market category. Those we just aren't able to reroute. So we can either like, we just eat the cost basically and just ship it from Monster Digital. Then a few reminders: update your free shipping bar / email pop-up for countries where free shipping thresholds are different. You want to monitor your conversion rate per country. Bella Canvas, just in my opinion, don't do it. Other printers don't carry it. And a question that I get a ton is, well, can I set up, my store so that my US customers are able to shop for Bella Canvas, my international customers get Gildan 64000? And the answer is yes, technically you can. I've done it before, but it is, and this is one of those things that I think people just need to try and see how much of a can of worms it is for themselves. They can hear me say this, but they really need to experience it themselves. But long story short, don't do it. It ends up being way more complex than it seems on the surface level. It seems like, oh, I'll just lock a collection and then send people there, or I'll just set up URL redirects based on their IP address, like that kind of thing. And then I'll just have my USA collection of products, then I'll have my international collection. But then you start getting into, well, what about recommended products and abandoned cart emails? And what about like new, like when you're emailing your customers about new collection drops? Are you going to segment your email list and send one email to your US people and a separate email to each individual country based on what they're, what products they're able to fulfill? It's like, yes, you can do all of those things, but is that the highest leverage thing you can do in the business? In my opinion, absolutely not. So I highly recommend not going with Bella Canvas because printers don't carry it. And the Gildan 64000 is high quality. The Gildan 5000 is the one that's cardboard, and that's what people think of when they hear Gildan. So just don't do Bella Canvas if you have any plans to scale internationally, which I highly recommend it. And if your brand, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but if you think your brand is like, oh, I'm just US, like nobody's going to buy my stuff internationally, that's absolutely wrong. I've yet to see a brand that does well in the United States that uses that as like their testing ground that isn't able to do well selling internationally. Like people were buying Lincoln 5-star. We only sold internationally for a minute on History Tees before we started working with Open Store, and they have something about being like a C Corp or something with their company structure. They're not able to sell internationally. I'm not sure, but long story short, we tried selling internationally for about a month, and it did extremely well. So people were buying shirts that had a picture of Lincoln on it over in Germany, France, UK. So if that's about as stark a contrast as anyone could expect, or what I would have expected would work in selling internationally, but it did phenomenally well. So, and lastly, keep it simple. And international does not fix an unprofitable store. So do not get into this too early. Do it when you have something working well in the United States, and then just use this as a tool to scale. It is not things aren't working, I'm not able to get a low cost per click, therefore I'm just going to start piling on international. I don't recommend that. It'll pull your focus away. But all that said and done, thanks for watching. And if you have any questions about the Make automation or anything like that, honestly, there's a ton of tutorials and YouTube videos on it. The automation that I set up is nothing like that crazy, but it helps. If you have any questions, try asking the ChatGPT. It's really good with that sort of thing as well. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.